Hello, I'm Becky, Teen Services Librarian at DCDL. Welcome to the first in our tabletop role-playing game how-to series, where we'll cover the basics of playing tabletop role-playing games, also known as TTRPGs, or just RPGs. There's so much history and lore attached to systems like Dungeons & Dragons and Pathfinder that it can be intimidating to get started. Hopefully, these videos will demystify the process and leave you feeling excited to dive in. First, let's talk character creation. This video is all about race and class. The RPG system that you're using will determine what goes into character creation. If a system is set in the human world, you'll most likely, though not necessarily, play a human character. When a system introduces sci-fi or fantasy elements, that may not be the case. Often, systems assign specific traits based on your character's race or lineage. Each race has unique inherent abilities, similar to the way fish and birds have different adaptations in our world. The D&D Player's Handbook includes the following race options: humans, dwarves, elves, halflings, basically hobbits, half-orcs, sort of an ogre folk, gnomes, dragonborn, scaly humanoids descended from dragons, and tieflings, folks with horns and a tail descended from an infernal bloodline. There are tons of D&D expansions with even more races to choose from, like the cat-like tabaxi or the shape-shifting changelings. If you go outside D&D, you'll find even more options. Most races speak a shared language that's understood by everyone, literally called common, as well as their own race's language. Some races can see in the dark, like gnomes. Some races have a natural resistance to poison, like dwarves. Different races also get different abilities and skill bonuses. We'll talk more about those in a later video. Your character's race may determine their ability to use certain weapons, armor, and tools. RPG systems tend to paint with a broad brush when it comes to characterizing the appearance, morality, and behavior of various races. Use the lore as a jumping-off point, but make your character your own. Subvert stereotypes and play with expectations. Just like in our world, there's room for nuance, and that makes your character more interesting. Where race is based on what type of fantasy creature you are, class typically has more to do with your character's life path. Class determines if you'll be a fighter, a spellcaster, or just really sneaky. To use D&D as a base example again, the Player's Handbook introduces the following class options. I'm going to group them in the very unofficial categories I mentioned a second ago. Fighting types include barbarians, fighters, monks, paladins, and rangers. Barbarians are primal, nature-y warriors. Fighters are military-based. Monks use magical martial arts. Paladins are magical knights for a cause. And rangers are hunters and trackers. Spellcasting classes include bards, clerics, druids, sorcerers, warlocks, and wizards. Bards use music magic, clerics are magical priests, druids use nature magic, sorcerers are gifted their magic, warlocks get their magic through a dark bargain, and wizards are magic nerds who literally just taught themselves. Finally, there are rogues who are basically just really sneaky. They are thieves, assassins, and or magical trickster Loki types. Classes often include more specific subclasses. For example, your wizard could be a necromancer who deals in death magic, or your cleric might be of the Tempest domain with access to a bunch of weather spells. In D&D, subclasses usually start at level 2. It's absolutely okay and probably a good idea to look ahead when you're creating your character in order to have an idea of who and what you want to be. Generally, you want to have a well-balanced party. If you're all squishy magic users with nary a rough boy among you, combat's going to be difficult. Fighting classes tend to be sturdier than spellcasters. It's also handy to have someone with access to healing spells. A good dungeon master, the person who runs the game, also called the DM, can make it work, even if you decide your party is an all-bard punk band like my first D&D group did. It was rad and I regret nothing. Still, it's a good idea to discuss party balance ahead of time with the DM or the group as a whole. Outside of fantasy RPGs, you get into different archetypes. For example, Monster of the Week, which is what it sounds like, is set in our world, so it includes different classes than you might find in D&D. There's even a class, the Mundane, whose whole thing is that they're just a normie with no special powers or abilities who is just trying to not die. The more you play a system, the more you'll learn about your playstyle. You may discover you hate playing non-magic folks, or that you love being sneaky, TM. Find what works for you and don't be afraid to try new things. That is a quick rundown of race and class in TTRPGs. Happy gaming!